Ready?
Not North Salt Lake, but north of
Yeah.
Salt Lake.
The mayor's right and everybody else.
The north end of Salt Lake. That's all, I don't. What about you?
Oh, no, we have no, there's work out of my house.
Does. We talked about the. That's,
You can go like this.
that's her.
No.
Right, that's what putting it back.
Oh, maybe it might be in the, that panel of CSC. Remove where it says credit pressure.
Okay.
It might be in there.
I think when we first started Zoom, I remember like typing my name in and filling like a title out, but then it was like.
Now, yeah, cause when you get it,
Yeah.
yes, they're right.
Joe,
Yes.
oh, sorry, I just.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's been like, it's been a little while since we were going over this.
Yeah.
We might have those.
Okay.
What's that?
Through the new building.
I've been thinking about that, how like, yeah, other than that. Like I'm wonder, yeah, it's,
1, 2, 3.
I mean, the new house is 4 or 5, sure.
Nope.
What?
Recording it to the, I need to change. where
Oh,
it's
okay.
recording. Sorry.
Glad.
My map.
All good.
Now it's a short one. I mean,
need AC.
this building is pretty hot in July, but for sure, for sure. Okay, 3 P.M. on August 12th, 2026. Call a work session for the town of Alpha. And to order rather, not together, to order. And first item of business is discussion regarding the shell shaft. And between you and you, who's gonna talk first? Would you like?
I mean, I'm happy to go whatever you wanna do.
I was thinking I would go second and be as brief as possible to leave the space open for the group.
Okay.
So I did I'll just mention, Gabby Blackburn with Sunrise Engineering is on the call. I, we provided invites on the meeting to a couple of folks from Sunrise. Gabby is like our project manager for the planning contract. They haven't been engaged on the text amendment. Thought it would be worthwhile for them to just see how the sausage is made here in Alpha and get up to speed on some of these, general things. Sure.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
All right.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Right, kind of all knew each other, but just for the purposes of a video and audio recording, I'm Andrina Huffam. And I'm here with my husband, Walter Kaufbach. We are the owners of the Shallow Shaft property. Our attorney, Jay Springer, is also here, and Hans Hoffman, who's our architect, should be joining us. I'll let you know when he joins us. Okay. So we talked a little bit about our longstanding presence in the community. So the Shallow Shaft's been here since 1956. Part of that plays into, with the amendment and some of the things we're asking for is the fact that it has. That it has been a part of the community for a long time and it kind of predates, some of the changes in the code. So it has been a ski shop, a restaurant, and an apartment. It's been closed since COVID in 2020. And we've been actively working with the town since October of 2023 to try to get things moved forward on this project. So 39 years of family investment. This was purchased by Walter in 1986. Obviously, it has been operating for 6 years, but we did operate it, for 33 years. I know there's some questions as part of, Chris's presentation of, I'm not sure what's all possible here, but what I think the relevant questions is, what can be successful in space? And that's what we have tried to do here is to develop something that really can be successful. And that we've also incorporated a lot of feedback from the planning commission and the CCA They would also think we've been recorded, we're going to incorporate some feedback that came from the last time. I didn't get that feedback into the slides before I sent them to Chris. Some of Chris's slides got me to think about some things and, so wanted to share a little bit of that thinking with all of you. So we've been supporting both the lodges here and the local nonprofits. And we're really recommending the changes because, Alton has changed, the environment has changed around us. We think we want to do something different with the property, with the business, and we think these things will be good for the town of Alta, and they are realistic solutions and not theoretical possibilities of what could be done here. So we want to adapt to the changes and also preserve the environment. No, it's very important to have something that fits well within this community. Got feedback, we don't want to be, a big high-rise community like Number, we also don't want that, and so we'll propose that we think fits in well with within the town. So this is our second informal meeting with the town council. We're not asking for a decision today because we want to make sure we're getting all of your good feedback and incorporating as best we can into the property design. I've had discussions with all of you. Majority of those were very positive, and we've incorporated some of those feedbacks, into the slides. So we want to obtain, kind of final feedback on the text amendment prior to going to a public meeting and hoping to do that in this meeting. We're presenting a high level overview of the Shallow Shaft property redevelopment from the current structure to a building that is, we believe, aesthetically beautiful, one that can be a source of pride for the town. We also know that we are asking for approval of a text amendment and not approval of a plan. We are asked to provide a plan as part of the text amendment, so we have put a plan together that these things, can and, probably will change by the time we go through that process. So I want to make sure that people understand that what we're presenting is a plan, but not the final plan, for the lot. So on the agenda, the text amendment recommended changes, because I provided this before Chris had his slides out. I put there are no changes since the July council meeting, really suggest or point out a couple of things on the text amendment when we go through those. We're going to give you a high level overview of the proposed redevelopment. We really haven't made any changes there. We want to replace the outdated structure with a modern, energy efficient design. We want to reorient the building to better utilize the site and optimize solar exposure. We want to assure full code compliance. Codes have changed quite a bit since 1956. And we want to provide a very safe environment for those utilizing the property. And we're able to focus on sustainability. So we want to repurpose the restaurant and apartment to a compact hotel use and a retail space. And so we'll provide you with site maps and an updated exterior view. So the amendments. So the wording of each amendment was developed in consultation with the Alta Town staff and the Alta Town legal counsel. So just to provide a little bit of historical background, which I provided before we first came to the Planning Commission in April of 2024, we came in with units only, kind of what we determined were hotel units only. Got a lot of feedback from the staff. We came back in March of 2025 with the design that you will see here. And then as we were going through the process of understanding how some things were done within the town in terms of the Snow Pine Lodge, the Wrestler Lodge, and the Gold Miner's Daughter Lodges, having hotel units with kitchens and doing a grandma request. I was also up in the town every single month during the summer of 2025 to try to talk to all of the council members. And it was during a meeting of talking with Roger, with Mayor, that, Chris came to me and said, I have an idea for you. As we've been discussing with the Planning Commission, there is interest in being able to support you. So I think I have an idea for you that might help you do what you want to do. And so Chris and I met separately and we talked through the idea, which was to come up with a different use that was specific only for zone C. And that could be incorporated into the permitted uses along with our lot area width and slope requirements. So Chris and I first talked about that. We worked with our attorney, we actually put together an official amendment, but didn't submit it because I had talked to Chris about, can I submit it to you? Can you give me feedback so we don't get a lot of iterations? It was through that that we then came back actually to the planning commission. With the use called a boutique hotel, the planning commission said, hey, we don't like that term. And then Chris suggested at that point, let's this out together. So that's where these definitions come from, is really from a collaborative effort with the Alta Town staff and our legal counsel and the Alta Town Council to come up with the definitions of permitted and prohibited uses and the lot area width and slope requirements. So the new definition for the Alta Town Code was around creating a new definition for a compact hotel facility. The Alta Town Code does, according to the interpretation by the legal counsel, does not allow facilities of base facility zone to have adjacent kitchens. So we were developing a new hotel definition specific to Zone C. It was incorporated, this with specificity to Zone C was incorporated both in the definition and also in the uses, making it very clear. But this was Zone C, so again, that was something that the town staff asked us to do. So the new definition was a compact hotel facility is a small lodging facility located only within Zone C of the base facility zone containing no more than 8 guest rooms, including any on-site worker housing unit as may be required by the Alta Code. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, in the Alta Code, guest rooms in a compact hotel facility may include in-room or shared kitchens and kitchenettes for guest use. So the planning commission had a neutral recommendation, suggested changing shared kitchens and kitchenettes to shared provisions for cooking, which we are agreeable to. And in Chris's slides, he indicated that if Zone C units were allowed to have 8 guest rooms, that would put Zone C at a density advantage relative to the other units within the base facility zone. So it wasn't our intention to do that. Talked with Jay about, okay, when you and Polly sat down and can you remind me how we came up with the 8 guest rooms? And he said, we're really looking at the code as, if you have 1 net developable acre, you can only have 33 guest rooms. And so 8 seemed reasonable for this compact size based on the Zone C. So as we.
If I can add to that,
Sure,
if you don't mind, so really this is kind of a belt and suspenders, and there's a lot of that in this whole process. Of making sure that the messaging is consistent, this is a small facility. So even just relying on the density code that's already in effect and that this doesn't supersede. Because it's no more than, this is still signaling that it's small. And that's part of the consistent messaging we've tried to accomplish it.
yeah, so in thinking through that, I sat down and talked a little bit about, there's 2 definitions in the code. One definition says a guest room defined is a room that has 600 square feet. 600 square feet. And then there's a definition of density, which basically says in the base facility zone, you have to have 33, you can only have 33 rooms per 1 net developable acre. Okay, so I had asked Chris at one time, I don't understand how the Snow Pine Lodge can have 50 plus rooms. I think it's like 54 rooms or 57, I don't remember exact number. When they have 1.15 acres, seems like they can only have 33 rooms. And then Chris said to me, well, it's not doors on rooms. It has to do with the definition of a guest room, which is 600 square feet. So we spent some time looking at, because we had requested through the grandma request, the Snow Pine Lodge building permit, all of their plans. Hans and I talked, through this and basically said, okay, if you take 33 rooms, let's just say the Snow Pine is 1 acre, just to make the math simple. You take 33 rooms and you multiply that by 600 square feet, the Snow Pine Lodge would be allowed 19,800 square feet of rooms, guest room space. So when we looked at their rooms, they basically noted that they were allowed up to 37 rooms, but with the 600 square feet, they ended up having rooms occupying 19,000 square feet. That's the way they can have more rooms than 33, but they don't exceed the square footage requirement. So then we went and said, okay, well, let's look at the current design of the shower shaft. And we looked at the current design of the shallow shaft and we said, okay. Just if you had 8 guest rooms. That would end up that you would have, I think it's 4,100, 44,180 square feet. But if you basically look at our plans and you add up the square footage of the rooms. It's only 2,655 square feet. So our recommendation now to the town is let's take out this parenthetical phrase, phrase, the contiguous with 8 guest rooms. And just say a compact hotel facility in zone C. If you take that out, we end up basically saying that we will comply with the density requirements within the town. So we wouldn't be, I know we weren't even developing something that was 8 rooms. We're developing something that was 5 rooms, and this includes the square footage in the kitchen space. You get up the rooms, the square footage in the kitchen space on both floors is 2,655. That would be, then if you took the 2,655 and you divided it by square feet, so if you wanted to know what rooms that is, it's 4.56. So we think we're well within the density requirements. And let's just take out the containing no more than 8 guest rooms. And then you just define a compact hotel facility as something that includes any on-site worker housing, may be required by the Altown code, it's only within zone C. We have the employee housing in there, and we'll change it to shared provisions for cooking. So that's again, taking feedback we're getting from the town council and making that change. To incorporate that. So, that makes sense, everybody?
I ask it, why did the planning commission wanna say shared provisions for cooking? Do they feel that that's just more of a?
That's what the
vaguer-
definition of. So the definition of dwelling unit includes, is that it includes a number of living facilities, including provisions for cooking. We don't have a definition of a kitchen or a kitchenette. And the boundary between those two things is important.
So it's just being consistent because it will be a compact hotel facility and not a dwelling unit. If this new definition is incorporated, but just have this definition that sits in with the definition of a dwelling unit, which also allows kitchens. Okay, so then we talked about how we put the new permitted use into the code related to proposed permitted and prohibited uses. At the time we made the submission, we had 3 alternatives, no requirement for retail may be included, retail, must be included. But so for simplicity purposes, last time I had the may be included, must be included, it's very clear to us that the council wants a retail space included. So I'm just gonna go to the retail space included slide only, just for simplicity purposes. Make sure we allow a discussion, so. You've seen this before, so it's a permitted use for all base facility zone. And we put in item number C, and it says notwithstanding the foregoing subsection B, the compact hotel facility is an additional permitted use in zone C only. This is the belts and suspenders that we're talking about. And it shall include as an accessory use a retail commercial service identified or inconsistent in subsection A.3. So if you look at 3 above, it says, here's the retail commercial services that are included. And it was really the town that came to us and said, okay, as long as this is under 400 square feet, we won't require any additional parking. And we added that notwithstanding the foregoing, the town or its delegate may waive this requirement for retail commercial service space, provided such waivers in writing. Because in the discussions in the planning committee, not everyone in the planning committee said us as owners should be required to have retail space, that we are owners and we should be able to decide what could be the most successful. So that's why we added that in there, but it's clear to us that the town wants to have this retail space. We'll put it in. The other change that, here again, the town saying we don't need additional parking Chris will identify on his sides that seems inequitable because we should be required to have additional parking. In the current design of the building, we have 5 parking spaces. We're required to have 1 parking space per 8 guest rooms. Required to have a half a parking space for employee, but round up to the nearest whole number. To 1 parking space your employee. We said we were providing 1 parking space to the town, that's 3 parking spaces. You need to have 2 parking spaces if you have 400 square feet. That's 5 parking spaces. We also have 2 parking spaces, 2 to 3 outside the. 2 to 3 parking spaces outside of the building. Depends on if you're parking in parallel or if you're parking into the hill. So. We have enough parking spaces to support this current design of the building, plus 2 extra spaces. So as a government to check that out, require us to have extra spaces, we have the parking spaces available. So that's the other change that I made to these things. So the lot area and slope width requirements has not changed. Haven't made any changes to that. The bottom line in here is that. We are zone C or structures that existed prior to the current code or the changes in the current code. There's some grandfathering in that's already been done with the photo house. So the photo house used to be 2 apartments and a t-shirt shop. It's now 2, I guess, residential units grandfathered in, which is in the base facility zone. Base facility zone, you'll see on slides that Chris is showing as written, not to allow residential units in the base facility zone. So we just wanted to be grandfathered in. And then such lots could be developed in accordance with all applicable zoning, including lot coverage and height, regardless of whether the width and lot size meet the dimensions. So we're just asking to be grandfathered in for these zones. So this hasn't changed, since the last meeting in the planning commission. Again, I think everybody was in favor, of this. So, I shared earlier that we understand that what we're submitting is the text amendment is for the code amendment, the submission's only for the code amendment. We know that we have to cross the next threshold, which would be a building permit for the final building that would go in this place. Then it's very common for codes and to recognize, for zoning to recognize lot parcels that have existed without change for long periods of time. Avoids gaming the system with new owners, and again, we've been part of the community since 1956. And Sharon, a lot of people talk about we're asking for a big change. We think a big change was done when the coverage went from 25% to 65% for all of the base facility zone. That was 160% increase for zone A and zone B. It states in the code that it includes zone C, but since we have small lot sizes, it's been interpreted by the town that we are not able to expand to 65%. We could tear down and rebuild in the existing footprint with 250 square feet for the shallow shaft. That's only a 6% increase. So just wanted to share that. And then the code that was in place at the time that we bought the building did allow for relocating the structure to a new place on the lot, did allow for it to expand. And so the prior code did allow this. I know we had some discussion about that last time. I gave the code right to Chris. Here's the relevant pages that demonstrate that that's the way the code was written at the time that we owned the building. I know there's concern about precedent setting, and similar concerns that seem to be my main takeaway point from Chris's slides was a concern about that. We do think that we can draft clear wording. We were asked to put in zone C only for the compact hotel use. So I think that, we're trying to address the town's concerns so the town could treat zones differently and not be worried about all the other towns. The zones are different now because there are smaller lots. And this would allow the smaller lots to remain effective business contributors into the community. Also some discussion about the size of the retail space. in the current design, it's, I forgot to mention that on earlier slides, those three things. The current design has it as 200 square feet, got feedback at the last meeting that people would like to see that be bigger. We can make it 400 square feet, to support the town. I think that for the size of the business we have relative to these multi-million-dollar revenue generating lodges, relative to our business, I think having that retail space is fair. It's fair for the size of our business in terms of activation of the community. I know the Snow Pine Lodge is doing a lot because they are open to the public. Where the other lodges are not, we get a lot of feedback if there's no place for employees to go. You know, the lodges have the majority of these employees, and I think they have a responsibility to do their share as well. So I think what we're doing makes sense for the size of the business that we have. What we're recommending doing. So it's, I have the class for questions here, I have the plans I can go through as well too. Any questions?
Okay.
Okay, plan overview, this slide's really in there to demonstrate that our property line does go into the asphalt, it's on the road, and so there are parking spaces that are on our property. There's a lot of discussion about whether that was true or correct or not. Walter had this survey done in 2013, the lot lines, which are the black dotted lines on there, are exactly the same as the survey that we were provided at the time that we purchased the building. So we use that as an overlay here to demonstrate that we had also received feedback from the Forest Service that we should move the building away from their road in the back for improved safety. It does open up green space between the town office, the photo house, and the shallow shaft. All of the coverage, we had questions about coverage last time, the old building's on 44%. That includes everything that's required according to the code, so it does include the asphalt and the parking spaces that's required as coverage. And then the new building at 51%. So you can see that we reoriented the shape of the building to optimize for solar exposure. It does include covered parking for functionality and safety. Because that was inspired by the existing shallow shaft building, and we wanted it to be aesthetically beautiful and be a source of pride for the town. And then you can also see here where they're parking into the hill, there's about 3 cars on the property, and if they're parking in parallel, there's room for 2 parking spaces. So that's how we know that we can meet the parking requirements for the 400 square foot retail space. So just exterior of the building here, we have the covered parking. When we came back from the very first meeting, we got a lot of feedback from the town, which is, hey, we want you to put employee housing in. We don't like this concrete wall. We'd like you to think about something with respect to your parking. We want to make sure that this is an avalanche safe building. So you were showing some windows in the back of the building. It's now concrete in the back of the building. And you wanted a smaller footprint, we made it more compact. So we felt we came in, you know, to the March meeting with incorporating all of the feedback that we got from the planning commission. So I just want to reiterate that we are listening, we are incorporating feedback both from the planning commission and also from the town council. So we got the covered parking and the cafe space in there. The second and third levels have the 5 hotel units and employee housing. We have the roof designed to support safe snow storage and runoff management. Big focus on health, safety, and sustainability. It meets up-to-date code requirements. We have safe egress from all living quarters. The current shallow shaft, the door that you're exiting has to be shoveled out, you know, a couple times during a snowstorm, and so this would provide safe egress from all of the living quarters. We wanted renewable sources of energy. We're environmentalists, so we want solar panels, and we're really aiming for 0 external energy consumption. So the parking garage incorporates UDOT feedback. So you got to be able to pull in, turn around, and come out nose first. So we've done that. We have, when we get the have a final design, they have to approve that, but that was their main feedback when we shared the information with them before, is you have to come out notice first. They would prefer parallel parking, for that reason, even though almost all up and down Cannon, everybody comes in notice first. So we want to provide dedicated parking for town use, improving community access, and the cafe retail spaces for community benefit. Visually designed, green roof, high performance building envelope, and resistance to avalanche. So lots of feedback from the town. Planning Commission and Council. So how do we support this, how is this addressed the town and the community priorities? So we have incorporated your feedback. We have affordable employee housing, we have a cafe retail space. Adds value as a community gathering spot, could be open winter and summer because of this smaller design. It'd be a lot easier for us to be open, I think, than some of the larger lodges, so we plan to do that. So year-round use, both housing and cafe space, environmentally conscious design, and then improved snow removal and traffic management. So we think the covered parking will really help management in front of our building. And then also provide a designated space, we said for the Alzatel Marshall, but certainly the council can determine who that space goes to. And create small transit and lodging options that fit the Alta tourism driven economy. Think, Chris, you make a comment though, there are three of the 5 lodges are now incorporating, kitchen units, and so it demonstrates that you have business owners that are trying to do things that continue to generate revenue. And so in a way, we're not asking for a novel approach, we're asking for something similar to be used in the zone that we are in. And we also are not asking that those businesses shut down. They're certainly, working for them, and they are developing sales tax revenue that helps support the town. So we want to make sure that people all throughout the community can be successful here. Then we have ADA accessibility, ensures inclusivity for all visitors. There's stairwells, and then there's an elevator that can bring people that need ADA accessibility to their room. We think we will have increased property tax and sales revenue, funding town infrastructure and services. And then boosting tourist spending, including lift ticket sales, progressing in Alta, and on Mountain Down and retail purchases and local business support, sea rentals and cure shops. And this is a compact hotel facility. It's not a condominium, planning on renting all the buildings. Because it was common, like if rented, we plan on renting them. There's no intention for Walter and I to lock up one of those spaces, or for our daughter to move up here with her family. She's actually intending to move the other direction.
So.
Yeah. So,
Good for you, no choice.
well, her employer won't let her move, so she's still for the future, but our goal is, to operate it as something that can be a hotbed turned over and can generate revenue for the town, so. That's it. Those for questions.
Okay, I'll quick back in B, and then questions can be formed by this and directed to both of us. Okay. So my only real recommendation to you today is that we try to take as much of our remaining time in future meetings on the shallow shaft to really have a conversation about the components, each component of the proposed text amendment, the pros and cons of each. If you think we should adopt one or all of them, why? If you don't, why? We need to establish that record, especially outside of some kind of larger planning process. It's really helpful to have reason, demonstration of legislative intent on the record as we change zoning regulations, as we contemplate changing zoning regulations. I'm not going to talk through this. I think we've talked about the existing conditions enough. I'm not going to talk about this either. There's 3 parts to the proposal. the planning commission made its recommendation in March, it was 4-1. We've talked about the changes to the retail component requirement that the planning commission recommend to the council. I want to frame you guys, get you guys ready to make a decision. These guys are entitled to a decision on the proposed text amendment under Utah law. The standard review is legislative, so you have really broad authority to make the decision you feel is in the public interest. If it's reasonably debatable that it's in the public interest, then it's presumed to be a valid decision. You can approve the entire text amendment. You can approve, one or the other of the individual components of the text amendment, but not the others. You can approve all or part of the parts of the text amendment with changes, or you can deny the application. And those would all be legal decisions. I'll try to be really quick here, talking through just some thoughts on the individual components of the amendment, the lot size amendments. I think this is really where we got started talking with Walter and Andrina about the future of the lot or of the shallow shaft property. As Andrina said, yeah, we have 8 commercial properties now. We have 8 pieces of private property that are zoned for pure commercial use. The multifamily zones.
So quick question, there's only 7 in the code. 3 in lot A, 2 in lot, 3 in zone C, 2 in lot B, and 2 in zone C, so that's 7.
Does it not mention the deep powerhouse?
Does not.
Yeah, well, it's really good that we amended the zoning map to because the deep powerhouse is on its own very small parcels. So thanks for the heads up on that. We were actually going to remove those from the code, but we just try to do as little as we can at this point to stay safe. So, anyways, this is one of those cases where we've talked about precedent. There's been some concern expressed that this could set a precedent for the town to reduce minimum lot size elsewhere. And as I've said before, anytime we change a regulation, particularly a zoning regulation, it could be seen to set a precedent. So the only way not to set a precedent by changing zoning regulations is to not change zoning regulations, and that's not good for the town or for the community. We want to be adaptive over time within reason. The base facilities on the commercial core is our sales tax base. More than half of the budget is comprised of sales tax. It may be reasonable for the council to use the purpose statement of the base facility zone ordinance as justification to create this some unique condition on the zone C lots. Otherwise these the shallow shaft and the photo house are just kind of locked in time. The footprint and form of those buildings will be as it is today in perpetuity if that doesn't change. So the council can elect to keep it the same way or change that. Just as you get into discussion, sound out your justification for what decision you think we should make and get comfortable with it. It's my recommendation. So the use amendments, this is the sticky one. It's the one with the kind of the broadest spectrum of issues to discuss. It's plain to me with my wonderful, fortunate view of downtown Alta every day that we do not have a thriving year-round retail and service economy in Alta. And we aren't small business operators in the town office. Those of us and some of our council members have various levels of experience in small business and business in Alta. But I can't imagine anyone would argue that this is an easy market to, operate a standalone retail business. The thing is, we just don't have, we have, certainly testimony from one of the only entities ever to try to run a standalone small retail business.
And last, I bought it from Rainbow, so just looking.
Right, so there are 3 sites in route, right? So we don't have expert opinion on this topic. I just wish we had some, so we don't today. I don't think we're gonna generate any you know, in the next month or two. As we've discussed the general plan process, I hope we'll shed some light on that question. But you know, we're not likely to be into that, sort of digging into that for a little while yet. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is the one where there are the most trade-offs, and the council needs to discuss those trade-offs in identifying the decision it wants to make. The retail commercial service, I mean, this one's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. You know, I'll just point out that these are allowed. There's nothing prohibiting retail service in the base facility zone. The real effect of the proposed text amendment is that it would resolve that parking requirement for a small coffee shop. I mean, I am comfortable stating that I don't think it will be a big deal. I don't think it would create a major impact for a 400 square foot or smaller retail space on, you know, on a shallow shaft lot to not have dedicated parking. I mean, customers at that business are by and large, they're not driving up the canyon on a Saturday in January to get a cappuccino. Or buy a print from the art shop or anything like that. So, you know, I haven't said that in the council meeting yet, but the planning commission, which, you know, where we have an architect and a transportation planner, agreed with that explicitly. So, yeah, I mean, you know, staff and the planning commission agree. I think that I don't know if taking the waiver of council, sorry, the delegation of the waiver authority from the council, my recommendation is that if there is going to be a waiver of the retail requirement, that it remains with the council. I think that's best remaining a legislative decision.
And that's what the planning commission said too.
Yeah,
There are-
right.
Do you watch the video, which I did watch again, 128 or 129, that's what they all say, that take away the delegation.
Yeah.
Or delegate, but they didn't say take away the council.
Sure.
Give us a show.
Okay, so, you know, we discussed in a couple meetings, planning commission, last time council meeting that, it is true, there are hotels, 5 hotels and 3 of the 5 hotels in the base facilities that are, operating these prohibited uses, hotel rooms with kitchens. We're engaged in a zoning compliance process with each of them. You know, they have the hotels have the opportunity to demonstrate that they're legal non-conforming uses which they can essentially do by demonstrating that they were in existence prior to the base facility zone being adopted. If they can't establish legal existence, they have to essentially they'll have to demonstrate one way or another they were permitted in the first place, so we can make sure that if there are additional rooms beyond what were permitted, that they comply with the properties, continue to comply with the base facility zone with respect to density, parking requirements, employee housing requirements, and so forth. They can obtain compliance by no longer renting those rooms or removing the kitchen, but again, we have questions on at least one of them about whether, you know, the overall zoning on the property supports that additional hotel room, which may have been permitted as an employee unit.
Can we pause here for a second?
Yes.
It's my understanding that your proposal is for 5 rooms, 2 of which have fairly extensive cooking facilities. Is that the right
It's not
one?
extensions, they basically have a living room and a kitchen.
Okay, great. 2 out of the 5, and then the other 3 remaining rooms all have microwave and
Yeah, just kind of typical things for a mini fridge, you know.
well, not typical for every room up here. So
Typical
what
for
I
a lot of rooms up here.
what I find different about your proposal versus sort of saying, hey, these hotels that are in existence are already doing this. It's not that, 50% of those existing hotels have kitchens in them. So it's not like 50% of the Snow Pine, 50% of the Rustler have kitchens in them. So that's a precedent setting change.
Yeah, it could be. Right, any zoning change that's precedent, but sure, like if
I mean,
we're
that's a pretty
telling
good one
hotels
for
that they
the
can't.
cooking facility. I mean, I understand the argument that you're making that, hey, there are rooms that already have this in existence, but it's not half.
That's on the photo house, the only other building in zone C. 4 rooms, 2 kitchens.
They're different than you.
That's arguable.
They're short-term rentals.
The short-term rentals, that's not allowed in the base facility zone, we have the deep powder house across the street with apartments. That
Right,
simply have kitchens, and there's a couple of them, and they all have kitchens.
and you're digging yourself into a precedent-setting example.
That's only affecting zone C. So if
Sorry.
the attorney goes to, you'd run into problems if we wanted to change it. And another zone and you're not allowing other people in that zone. But because it's in zone C, you can ask the attorney whether that's covered with zone C. We're not talking about, we're not talking about A and B. It's only pertaining to that. So you're not gonna run into a precedent set.
You're using those zones A as an example of why it already exists. Right? Like that's your counter argument. You're like, hey, it exists over there, so therefore it should be able to exist over here.
So where we started was. We want, the only other building in this zone. Has these rental units, so we are wanting to do something similar. Okay, then, we were told. That the hotel definition within the town of Alta. Does not allow hotel rooms to have kitchens. Now, we disagree with that, because if you look at the definition, it does not
Doesn't say.
say that, so that's an interpretation. Of a definition, then we came back and, in our very first meeting. We were prepared for someone to say hotel rooms can't have kitchens. That's when we said, well, by the way. You have hotel rooms with kitchens, so our purpose is not. We are not trying to create an equity problem within the town of Alta. We are business owners trying to create a business that can be effective for the town. Walter was told probably for 20+ years, 20+. That, you bought a restaurant, you have to be a restaurant. That's actually not true. We can be any use within the town of Alta. So that's why we felt we fit right within the hotel definition. And we could point to other hotels that had rooms with kitchens. That's how it all started. So we're trying to create a successful business. We had a restaurant here that was not successful. So we're trying to do something for the town that can be successful, that can generate revenue, that does provide a space for community gathering. And it would be us and the Snow Pine that's doing that. You don't have any other of these lodges that are doing that, and they make millions of dollars relative to what we're doing. So we think what we are doing is fair. Or what we're proposing, we're not doing anything consciously right now.
Okay. It's 3:46, so this was a key slide, I should have titled it. Equity or equality, and I just want to bring you back to our strategic planning over the last couple of years, the mission and values that we adopted. We had a conversation about whether equity or equality was a guiding principle for the town. And we settled on equality, and I think a lot of that was informed by some of the other conversations about zoning and rezoning that we've been having in the last couple of years. So I just want to remind you that as if you need a reminder that the town council or recent councils have exhibited a preference to treat properties similarly, even across zoning districts. So I do think you need to have I would recommend you have a discussion on the record about whether this is something that should only be allowed in zone C if you're inclined to permit it. And specifically, is it, do you agree with the opinion that these small lots are other sort of pure retail uses are non-viable? As I've said, I didn't see that many passersby today, so I think I know there's some sympathy to that. in the community. The density question, I mean, it's only really come up for the last couple of meetings. Or conversations that we've been having, it sounds like they have an alternative to the proposal. So anyway, I think we just need to be clear on what the proposal is going into future meetings. You can talk about it after this if you want to. So, again, I think it's, I'm not prepared to say whether I don't have an opinion at this point, or whether, this is a pragmatic approach to reactivating a couple of small parcels in a challenging environment, or whether, I think it's likely some sort of, expert economic analysis would reveal that in fact it is plausible to do, standalone retail on a small property. And we've talked about how, this is not a building permit. The concept could change, but for any number of reasons, so to adopt amendments, we really need to be sure we're comfortable with, some of the realization of these new regulations than what's been pictured. At least guys have been very upfront about that. So, I would recommend you strongly consider, whether you want to, keep hotel rooms with provisions for cooking just as on C, or consider some other, some very limited, if you're to consider a change in permitted use elsewhere in the base facility zone, it should be in a very limited fashion. Until we can do a lot more analysis on what the impacts of that would be to the community and our utility capacity and so forth. So now that you have 6 minutes before our break, I recommend that you have discussions.
I think we need more time, but let me vouch first. This is the second time, sort of the issue of what is a condo and what's not a condo has come up in front of us. In like 3 months. I think it is time to get our general plan done. I don't actually think it's very hard. Last time I reviewed it, there were like, I don't know, 40 different things in it, of which I think the only things that need to be looked at are, what do we want to do commercially, what this is about, and the other one is, what, if anything, do we want to do on the conservation front? My point is, I don't like one-off stuff. When we don't have a plan that, that is current, it puts us in the position of having to make one-off decisions, which I don't particularly like. That said, I think we need to do something to develop business plan. I'm strongly in favor of it, and I'd like to really be strongly in favor of it in the form of a general plan. Should we make exceptions now? The policy, you went through a lot of stuff. I appreciate how much work you've done. One of the things you've done is told us, gee, some of your stuff is so difficult to interpret. All of the meat is actually an interpretation, not in the written form. And maybe we need to do something about simplifying that to make it a little bit less murky and potentially a little easier for other people to interpret. Appreciate that. In the meantime, the question is, what do we want to do at the policy level? So let me deal with that. I think at the policy level, there are 2 different issues. One, maybe 3. The first one is this a condo by any other name? I agree with you, but we have to make sure that the language is fiscally differentiated from the condo and go through that to make sure that everybody's comfortable that, no, this is consistent with us rejecting a condo a couple.
It would be impossible for these to be condominium.
Okay.
There's so much, there's chapters and chapters in state code about it. They go through a whole separate permitting process.
I'm only making the point that the language for that is in your remit, that the condo decision is more appears. So we're comfortable that the language you've been, it isn't the same as a condo is sufficiently differentiated, then there is no further policy decision. The second issue is, what do we do about the other things that we pointed out that look a lot like what we're approving in Zone Z? One decision would be, oh, we're only doing this for Zone Z. I am sympathetic to Askins. It's going, why are you only doing that when these other people have been around almost as long and they've had similar things going on, and why aren't you at least addressing that explicitly? So that's, I think, an interesting policy question that we need to focus on. Do we want to grandfather those things? Do we want to see if they're actually conforming or not conforming, et cetera? So I think we need, resolution on that before we actually make the decision. And the third one is really just a bigger one, which I don't think we can do it anything other than the general plan, which is what do we want to do in terms of encouraging business development in a general sense? Has little to do with the kitchenette stuff, but it's related. It's related. All right. That's all I have.
I really appreciate that you have taken the time to work with a planning commission and with us. I mean, we're on our second work session. And you've listened to the input from the staff and the planning commission. I mean, every time you've come or every time you've talked to us, I've seen kind of some sort of iteration of change that you've tried to embrace. And so I really I'm very impressed that you have been very open-minded in the process. And that the other thing that I've been impressed with is that you want to contribute to the community. If you're not just trying to build something for your own sake, it sounds like you really want to be important to the community. And you want to make an impact in the community, which I get a sense from. And that is also something, I commend you on. I would really like to see you guys be able to do something with this. I was on the planning commission when we brought the base facility zone stuff online, so I understand the constraints of zone C. I remember talking about it a lot. You, as Chris said, are very locked in perpetuity if we don't. I do really appreciate what Chris said, that we do have to make some change moving forward. Towns do zoning changes for a reason, to adapt and improve. So I'm not opposed to, taking some of these considerations in. I do kind of agree with what Dan Schilling said a little bit last time we had a work session, that I don't feel that we as a town should have any dictation in your business plan. So the fact that you want to include a retail space with that wording, is nice, but I also feel like, I don't know, as a town that we can force you to continue that. So I like that you guys are keeping that option to retain a potential change from the council if for some reason that changed down the road. Zone, like you said, zone C is strange. You guys already have a bunch of weird stuff. You already have a bunch of non-conforming issues that the other zones don't have. They're already, in a way, when we adopted base facility zone, there already was some precedent set for your zone. I mean, right now, another zone could come up and argue with us that zone C has something they don't have. Without even you guys being. So I'm not 100% convinced that, we can't make a change in zone C, and yeah, we might be setting a precedent, but there already are so many set for zone C already. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I don't know if that gives Chris where he wants. I do like that, you brought up our purpose statement for the base facility zone.
Yeah, that's positive.
I do feel that what they're proposing does fall within the purpose of the base facility zone. I don't I think like Craig said, I don't want to see some rented ownership, but that's not what they're proposing. So that's kind of where I know we have 4 or 5 minutes left.
Okay. Do you want to go? You want me to go? Okay, great. So, first of all, I admire all the work that you have done. One of your first statements was that you have largely positive meetings with each member of the town council. And just so it's on public record, I did enjoy my conversation with you, but I do not support your plans. So when you say that, hey, we love Alpha, we really want to support the community. Has anybody talked to any member of the community that's psyched for them to build a hotel here? No. You have, okay. I feel like you ask anybody what they want, what they miss. They miss the shower shop. They miss a place to gather. They miss a restaurant. That's what the community really wants. You bought a restaurant. I know that you could do, right? So you could still have it as a restaurant and an apartment.
But we don't have to, so that's.
Right, okay. But
So if we don't go through with this, it will be just a hotel without a restaurant. So.
Well, that's if you get approval from us, or you just, you're gonna turn it into a hotel just.
If we can't move out of our footprint, we'll just be a hotel.
We will stay within our footprint.
Yeah,
And we can.
And we can do that. We're, that's why
We were
Well,
trying
hey,
to, we were trying to do
if
something.
we, if
appropriate.
you're allowing us to move out, we wanna give benefit to the town of what you want.
Yeah, they're
So-
currently not locked in to stay exactly how they are. They
Yeah,
can
we will-
change, their building can stay the way it is, but the use of it.
Well, we can tear down the building and stay within the same footprint, and we can be any use within the facility zone. We will not be a restaurant.
So I guess. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to finish and say, it is expensive to tear down and rebuild. And we are, which I shared with you on the phone, we are not willing to build it as a restaurant. And hope that it will be successful.
Yeah.
Hope, I was in, so Walter and I, we tried to successfully run this business. We also, Walter successfully ran a real estate business out in Minnesota. I was an executive at a major manufacturer, lots of experience in business. Hope is not a strategy. We never used hope as a strategy. We're not gonna do that.
And we can all agree that the canyon has changed significantly since the shell shaft was shut. We were talking about this the other day, there's so many people in the canyon now, year round, biking, hiking. There's so many people who want another place to go, people who get turned away from the shell shaft. So,
So.
I'm not
just
sure.
let you know, it's just let you know that that's the plan we'll have, so you'll be part of the people that you can say, well, there's no retail space, you know, that was your decision.
Yeah, because we don't.
we're supporting hotels that have 50% kitchens in them.
Well, we don't have to have that.
Or a higher density than what already exists.
We're basically-
That's what Chris's opinion is.
No, but
And then now they've offered the.
no, we're basically.
It always said up to, that was not an exception to the density regulation. There was no.
There was never an intention,
We would have maybe run into a conflict in interpretation. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you pointing.
right,
out.
but that was never our intention.
Yeah.
Never our intention.
Okay.
So.
Sorry, I don't see the meeting.
The question I was going to ask. You answered, which was, where do you don't put this extra man? And the answer is, you're gonna tear it down, make a hotel.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So that's what we're hoping. And we wanna work with the final plan, you pass this, we still have to come to you for the final outline of how the building's gonna be, and that's why we wanna work with you. And what kind of restaurant, cafe, ice cream shop, pizza, whatever you want.
In that space,
In that space.
there's a retail space that we thought.
And does the caretaker's unit have a single bed in it?
Yes,
So only one person can occupy
Yes.
your proposed employee housing, is that correct?
that's correct, and that meets the code.
Right, but one person, so you can't have a partner unless you sleep in a
Well,
single
I'm not
bed.
sure we can, if that's a concern, we're willing to address
Put
that.
a double bed, but what,
I mean,
We were
if
also
those are concerns of yours, that's what we want to address. So if you're concerned about, you know, having employee space bigger.
And then the caretaker unit's on the back, so it's gonna be constantly covered by snow, so there's no
No,
natural light.
no.
well, no, there's a window on that side, and basically, the floor that it's on, we wouldn't expect the snow to be that high.
Yeah,
So the whole goal here was to have egress windows
Yeah.
throughout.
Okay, we've come to the end of the clock.
Sorry.
If not to the end of the discussion. So I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn our work session
So,
and
I'll second.
all right, in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
a
right,
lot of positive discussion.
Oh, we did have a positive, Scott, and I would welcome that again.
okay, how about a 2-minute stretch break?
You know. He's over.
You
I
got
don't know
it.
if that's.
uh,
I don't see it. He's like backpack. He's like, all right, nobody's really in town.
I know, they all got now. More than mine. That's why she doesn't. Why should I? See if mom doesn't need it. I guess I didn't. I usually have so many extras. Probably my shit is just like.
I just think, I know, I think like that. Maybe.
What is in the, so I just left. So that's. And similar conversation there. Or is
That's what I heard. Yeah, so like, it's just. It's just kind of.
But you also. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just. Okay, still had a break. Okay. No, I'm a younger person, Jay. No, yeah, she's on vacation, so I'm covering it today. And then, that's all I have to say. No, yeah.
Thank you.
It's okay. Hey, yeah.
Can we roll?
All right, so let's, get it together here.
The gavel. My sister's
I told you. We need, we need more to.
She manipulates.
Right, shall we convene here?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
All right, I'd like to call to order the town council meeting of August 12th. I'd like to call to order the town council meeting of August 12th.
Mark's on it. Go, Mark, go.
All right, and the first order of business is citizen input. So,
We've moved the podium, let everybody know.
yeah.
Mark, this is your
So,
chance.
for you, or Brent, you wanna, which of you would like to start? Brent or Mark?
Let Mark.
Brent,
I always go first, Brent.
Hey, go ahead, Brent. You know,
You want me to stand at the podium?
yeah, that's where the recording works.
Thank you.
Brent, I'm not sure you know the town council members here. So let us introduce each other, ourselves.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Ansel. I am a resident of Alpha, and this is my second term on the town council.
Thank you, so happy to meet you.
I'm Elise Morgan. I live in employee housing and work for the ski area, and I lost track of my term on the town council, like 10 years. 11.
Long time. Senior member.
That's fair.
I'm Craig Heinrich, I live just up there, and I was a town council, not a council member, I'm sorry, I was a town treasurer, volunteer town treasurer. Well, actually, I paid $100 a month, you know, so.
You've made it work with that.
I volunteered.
Yeah. Prior to being a council person.
And our fourth town council member was last seen floating off the shores of Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm Roger Burke and I live in Alpha. I'm the mayor.
Wonderful. So Roger saw me by chance yesterday
And
and.
you haven't introduced yourself.
Pardon me, let me introduce I'm Brent Pratt. And I am since 2011, the owner of the Snow Pine Lodge. And that is, just to give you a little background, I don't want to take too long, but I love Alta. It is a wonderful place. I started skiing here when I started college in 1966. And skied through college, primarily at Park City West, because it was cheaper than Alta. And at the time, I could ski at Park City West for $5 a day. And Alta might have been 10 or 12, so I don't remember. So I skied through college and then I moved to Washington DC. And in 1980, I had 6 children and we started coming to Alta for every spring break. For 46 years, we've been coming for spring breaks with us and our extended family. When we invited our extended family, we brought 60 people to Alta. And it was just a wonderful family memory. And a lot of the reason why I'm here today is my ties to Alta in that way. So I love Alta. I love the terrain. I love the snow. And so that's my experience. And as an owner of Snow Pine Lodge, it's been a rough go. And it has been a very, very difficult investment for us. And I think the reason that I was invited to talk today for a little bit, I would like to, we have these properties that are likely coming for sale.
I want to make a clarification. I can't officially invite you. Because you're not on the
No,
agenda.
I'm not invited, I asked to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah,
Thank you. Let's be politically correct, and let's just tell you the whole story. David and Eric Eric is our general manager, David is my son, who is the asset manager of the Snow Pine. And I think they hurried up here to apologize for anything I might say today.
Not true.
And so
Not true.
I just had my 79th birthday and I hope to get a free pass there if I'm still healthy and on the right side of the snow. So that is a little bit about the background. Because these 2 properties are coming for sale, as a recent investor in Alta, I have some ideas that originally I spoke to Roger maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And that is Alta's prohibition on condo owners for the hotels. And just to let you know, a condo hotel, and I'm not asking for us to do that anymore. We're kind of over, I hope, over the hump. It's been a very rough go. But I'm more addressing these 2 other properties and trying to inform the council as to how an investor would look at coming into Alta. And I view it as the role of the city to encourage investment in their community. Really, the landowners and you are partners. You have all the approval rights over the use of their property, and you, of course, derive taxes from those use. When that land goes underutilized or underdeveloped, both the property owner and the town are hurt. And so that is, I just came in and we were talking about shallow shaft. And the shallow shaft, I think it's a crime that property is set idle for so many years. And it is an eyesore coming into Alta. Alta looks like a dump. As you walk in, you see Deep Powder House and Shallow Shaft, both of which are in terrible shape and not a good look for the gateway to your city. And you need to do something about That's my opinion. I don't wanna. I'll get too emotional here, but you're a resort. And there has to be some benefit to being in the town of Alta. The taxes that the hotels pay have to return in some resort to the taxpayers and to the citizens. And the one thing that I really love about Alta is your town marshals. They're awesome. I can't say much about some other things, but the marshals are awesome and we love them and they do a great job. So with regard to, I think it's your responsibility to help promote business in town, to use your assets and the landowner's assets. And that has not been my experience here at Alta. You've been pretty unfriendly and try to be as restrictive as you can be. And I think that for some people, they feel that that's their role to preserve Alta. But a city that does not grow dies. And you're very lucky to have Alta ski lifts here as a constant revenue source for your town. And otherwise, it would be a ghost town. So I want to talk to you a little bit about an investor making an investment in Alta. And I'm going to use two examples, Snowbird and Park City. Now, as Snow Pine, our occupancy is much lower than general occupancy in Park City because we don't have the critical mass to advertise and draw people to Alta. This past year, when we had a bad snow year, Alta really had an okay year. We always had good snow that you could ski on. But all the news was about Park City showing the dirt runs. And so there was nothing to promote Alta. And nothing was done to help the businesses here at Alta overcome that stigma of a bad snow year in Utah. Now, let me just compare Snowbird. Alta has better terrain and better snow than Snowbird all the time. But the advantages that Snowbird has, first advantage, is not in the city of Alta. Second advantage, they own the ski lifts and they own the rooms. And they can complement one another. So Snowbird can keep on running their lifts as long as there's snow. And that puts heads in beds. And that's an important revenue source. As an investor, you're really worried about those shoulder seasons. And you need heads in beds to make it work. The other thing that Park City has is they don't have as good as snow, but they have events that draw people there summer and winter. So in the summer, they have their music festivals, they have down in Snowbird, they have a film festival that draws people to those resorts again and again. Now that is a really fundamentally important thing for a businessman to have a consistency of revenue. Because whoever these new owners are, they're gonna have debt. The current lodges have no debt, and so they don't see a need to open during the summer. Snow Pine has a lot of debt because it costs 3 times as much as I anticipated it costing. And so we do have a lot of debt, and we have to do everything we can to meet that debt service every year. It never gets sick and never takes vacation. The summer doesn't not off for my debt service, and if we go to sleep, it'll roll over us. So I have been doing everything I can to generate business in the summer, and finally, we're starting to get some corporate business, and we've had a good wedding business. But that is cyclical. Some years are up and some years are down for weddings. We need something more consistent. And so if we could have something that is now I've approached the ski area about just running their lifts in the summer. And other resorts do it, and it's not a big cost, but Alta won't do it. Because unless they can sell 600 ski passes a day, they claim they can't make money. So they're not a help. And so having the owner of the hotels, also the owner of the lifts, they complement one another. You don't have that here. So let me just address the financing issue of a new owner coming in. A new owner coming in has this enormous equity slug that he has to put in. I put in 50% equity, so when our lodge cost $60 million, I put in $30 million of equity. That is mind-numbing. I never intended to put in 30 million. It was supposed to cost 22 million when I started. And every time I turned around, there was another reason that we had to spend more money, primarily on the structure. And that building happens to be the safest building on the entire planet. If an avalanche were to hit it head on, it has 140 micropiles, 40 feet down into granite in the front and in the back. It's not moving. And it's solid concrete from top to bottom. So that is, a little bit about why our cost tripled. With regard to a condo, trying to reduce that equity slug for a new investor coming in. What the condo does for the developer, it allows the public to bring in part of the equity. So they come in and buy condo units. Now, I was told when I was told about this is that condos remain vacant during the winter and the summer. They're primarily not used. That is true for a condo that is not a condo hotel. Condo hotels operate exactly the same way as they do as a full-on hotel. The owner buys the unit and when he's in it, he stays in it at no cost. But when he's not in it, the hotel rents it out to other people. They get half of the fee and the owner gets half of the fee. So the owner gets some back. But as far as the town is concerned, there's absolutely no difference between a condo hotel and a regular hotel. None whatsoever. And I just wanted to inform you, not for me, but for other investors coming in, you need to loosen up. Or those buildings are gonna stay just the way they are for the next 50 years. And so that is really important to me to see Alta grow and become a vibrant city. Those two eyesores down at the front, we need to do something about it. We need to plant some shrubs around here. We need to do some things to make it look like a resort and not an eyesore. So there is, we have been good partners in that from day one, we've been paying a lot of, what do you call them, the cactus?
Transient occupancy tax.
The what?
Transient occupancy.
Transient, and I have no idea what we paid, but I know we've been paying those taxes since 2011. And it's created a lot of income for the town of Alta. But I haven't had one penny of income off of a $30 million investment for all those years. So as partners, you guys are winning. You guys are killing it. And you're hurting the people that want to invest in your town. Now I've been a real estate investor all my life. Cities court us to come and develop something in their town. Alta has been exactly the opposite. I get calls when we first opened the new building. And everything was closed during the summer. We put open sign out so people would come in and buy a hamburger. And I get a call from the town saying, that open sign is not allowed, you can't do that. It's crazy. Another thing, we changed those lights out there about 6 times because somebody's complaining that the lights are too bright. I can't do anymore. We've done everything we can to reduce them. So I'm just asking you to understand our side of that, this partnership. It's been one way so far. And I need it to be a little bit more equal. Fair? And if we're gonna bring new investors here, let's treat them well. I was so happy to hear maybe there's something gonna happen with Shallow Shaft. I think it's a crime what the city has done to that owner over these many years. It's sat vacant and it's hurt him and it's hurt you, because you haven't got any taxes from it. Up there with the Strong Estate. It's like the Iran war, been going on for 47 years. Why don't you resolve it? So you can get some taxes on property that you have a rightful heir to collect taxes on. Get it resolved. Do something, not just obstruct. Anyway, that's why they came to apologize for me. So God bless you all. Thank
What
you.
2 properties, just to put it on record, are you referring to that are coming up for sale?
Pardon me?
You mentioned that there were some properties coming up for sale that.
Well, I know the Peruvian's for sale. And with Jeff Anderson's passing, I assume that that property will, that meaning the Rustler will be up for sale in not too many years. And the town needs to take a proactive role in planning their future and making sure that you have a vibrant community. You also have another opportunity in front of you in the Forest Service is doing an exchange with Alta. And if you can get more commercial base at the bottom, it would be a blessing to the town. You could create a there. So that there would be some place where people say, oh, that's such a cute little place to go. It's not here.
Maybe we don't want all those people here and that's why we live here. We
Well,
don't wanna look like Park City.
that's why it's that way. You wanna have a no growth. It will die.
That's why we love Alpha. Keep
All
Alpha
right.
weird.
I love Alta too. I hope you get my passion for Alta. I love Alta. You know, and it makes me so happy when people are here in the summer and they can come in and have a meal at Snow Pine. I've been told by many residents of Alta that are here, you know, thank you for building something that we can have during the summer. Something that's open and vibrant instead of dead. And we need more vibrancy in this place. And to support a business, you need to create some events that you have recurring people. So Snowbird, they created, I know,
Oktoberfest.
I don't like it either, but they have Oktoberfest that they make a ton of money on. What's it doing for these future investors up here? If they say, if you get a big no from anything that's gonna create recurring revenue from the town of Alton. So think of this as you have an asset, you wanna make the most of it, do something with it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any
Do you have
others?
any questions for me?
No, this is not supposed to be an exchange. This is supposed to be citizen input, so.
Mark wants to talk.
Mark, yeah, Mark.
Good afternoon. Attending the tax hearing last evening, I'd like to ask the chair for an extra minute or two. And in light of Mr. Pratt's remarks, I hope that the chair can grant that. The first thing I'd like to say is that I concur with Mr. Pratt's overall view of his experience with the town government. And I also concur with Ms. Ansell's sentiments on zero growth, in that we don't want those other people here, but I'm gonna be more in favor of that after I build my house. Okay? I think the mayor should also consider appointing Mr. Pratt to the capital committee, and he can join Mr. Highmark and the others. Because Mr. Pratt has some definite experience that the capital committee could probably use. On another matter regarding the capital committee. Mr. Cawley indicates that you're gonna have a meeting on September 2nd, and that they would like to have more frequent meetings. And so in the way of preparing himself and the committee members for that process, given the ambitious schedule to go through and make a decision on which way you're gonna go regards whether you are gonna go to the, general revenue bond, or whether you're gonna go for a sewer bond, water bond, etc. The timeline is very short. There isn't a lot of time, given that you wanna start spending the money in spring 28. That's a very short leash. So I would recommend that Mr. Cawley, in preparing to have discussions with the Zions folks, that inventory all the municipal water that is disclosed as legally available in the town of Alta on the state of Utah's website, because the state of Utah is in fact the sole authority to allow for water use in the state of Utah. Should also recover the map of the sewer district. And the map's pretty easy. It includes the whole canyon, bar none. The other thing is they should have available by September 2nd, a list of the water infrastructure that is currently permitted to be diverted throughout the town. So not only the mine, but the mines in the basin. There's 2, as well as Secret Lake and the infrastructure that's associated. Should also have a list of both the metered properties that are on the electronic meters and those yet to be converted. And so that you can have a complete list of assets that you're gonna pledge. The one thing that the town of Alta is particularly shy of when going to the bond markets is in fact ratepayers. You need to have ratepayers. So in the case of both the sewer and the water, all the people that are connected to any municipal water source in the town and or sewer, they should be listed as town of Alta ratepayers as opposed to anybody else. And I can tell you that right now you need more of them. The mayor and Mr. Cawley, in discussing in July 25, noted that the 1976 water contract made Mr. Highmark's property uniquely qualified to have sewer extended to it. Well, I'm here to say that after I noted to the assembled that, all the people in the 76 agreements would like to have water and sewer, that evaporated, because number one, the sewer is not connected to whether or not anything to do with the 1976 water contract. The 1976 water contract basically became moot at the Cahoon Maxfield hearings, which Mr. Kapolowski, the 50-year special counsel for water, represented this town in. So the other thing that I think Mr. Cawley has to prepare for is where is he going to get the expert advice regards water and sewer? Is it going to be provided by the general counsel McLean, or are we going to go to outside experts on that? And if we are, the question remains, is Mr. Kapolowski going to be one of them? Mr. Farron, he has appeared recently, but he's not the water guy, he's the subdivision guy. So I think you really need to sort out who's gonna answer what questions and, in consistent with Mr. Pratt's views, I think you have to do a better job. Thank you.
Any other members of the public who would like to speak? No.
No figure.
Yes, oh, you.
Burke, Alta residents. I have one comment, and that's that I didn't understand the extension of the cross tow water line. It was supposed to start again on Monday. Because it seemed to me the hydro seeding has already taken place, and so if there's gonna be any construction, I just wanted to know where. That's all. Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to the next item, which is renewable with Utah Local Governments Trust.
That is me.
Okay.
All right. Thanks
So-
for having me.
Can I just introduce Josh real quick?
Yes.
Dr. McCall has been with the trust for how many years?
This is my 17th year.
And he has worked with the town for probably all 17 of
Just
these,
about.
or just about, and
Yes.
Josh is great to work with. I know Chris and I will call him on a regular basis, and I just wanna say thank you.
Thank you. I was very appreciated, and I really like working with Jen and Crystal. So
Good.
They've been great to work with. I usually do this every year. Last year was through Zoom, but I'll take any excuse I can to get up here and visit out of town. Even though I'm an outsider, I promise I'm not gonna come build a home here.
Town.
But it's wonderful to be here. I love being outside. I grew up skiing here as a child and I love it. And it was the one ski resort that didn't have good snow last year. Cause Sundance is my home resort and you know, it's just dirt and sticks last year. So anyway, oh, do I have a little clicker here? Okay, awesome.
So we put Josh's full presentation in the packet, but he's
Yes.
got a streamlined version that.
Good.
Yes, and if you have any questions as I go through this, so we do the insurance for the town. The Utah Local Government Trust is a government entity. We're an interlocal. We are owned by our members and we serve about 91% of the cities and towns in the state of Utah. We are, we're structured differently than most insurance carriers. I'm a broker, but I also have a consultative role as a risk manager as well. So we do not collect commissions. We don't have any sort of goals toward bringing in new revenue every year. We are growing pretty good, but it's because we tend to be a better option than what is available on the commercial market. And the whole reason we exist is because of the hard market that existed in the 80s that pushed a lot of government entities out of the commercial market. The commercial market was not kind. And now about 85% of municipalities across the entire nation do find their insurance through a pool similar to the Utah Local Government Trust. So I'll walk you through this renewal, but like I said before, if you have any questions as we go through it, let me know. And I'll try to keep things brief. The first line of insurance is the workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is a tough line of insurance to write because one big loss can kind of throw the whole thing off. And we're on the hook for years and years and years if somebody gets really, really hurt. And there's only a 3-year period that it even affects your pricing at all. Once you eclipse that period, you go right back to normal from one loss or another. Well, there's a rating system. It's kind of like a credit score. Unlike a credit score though, high is bad. Credit score high is good. So you want to have a low rating. If you're having the exact amount of claims that we anticipate you to have, you're gonna have a rating of a 1. And a 1 does not change your premium whatsoever. But for every point you go above a 1, it affects your premium and it includes a surcharge. But for every point you go below a 1, it includes a discount. So these are your losses that you've had. You'll notice that 2021 through 2024, there's no losses. But we had a larger loss. 2 claims, one of them being particularly large, happened inside of the 2025 policy year. Now, that has not affected your look back period. Yeah, because those
2022, 2023, and 2024, the look back period, where that would affect your EMOD. This loss will affect it next year, just to be totally transparent. It hasn't affected it yet, but it will. So, that loss involved, I believe it was an accident on a bicycle, so. This is your EMOD right now. Your EMOD's at a 0.87. Right before renewal, and now it's at a 0.85. So you're in good shape as far as your current EMOD goes. You don't pay a lot of premium. You pay enough that you're getting a $702 discount with a very, very good EMOD. You can imagine that you're probably gonna get a surcharge next year. It's not gonna be much, especially relatively speaking to the loss that the trust has paid. That's just a demonstration why workers' comp can be challenging for us to write, is because we may not ever recover enough premium to account for that loss in the time that I would be at the trust. However, that's not necessarily our mission. Our mission is to take care of our members. And some years you guys will be putting premium into the pool that's gonna help other members, and other years members are gonna help you. And that's the whole point of the trust, is to help each other out, so. Your premium's up a little bit this year. Part of that's due to payroll, other part of it is due to just class code rates. We don't determine the class code rates, they come from the NCCI, which is the National Accounts for Compensation Insurance. There is a small increase this year. Any questions on workers' comp? Okay, general liability insurance, this covers you guys if a third party were trying to sue the city for either property damage, injury, loss of income, things like that. Your payroll is taken into consideration because payroll is a good representation of growth. And this is how we get charged from our reinsurers. So when payroll goes up, audited payroll, of course, we don't just take estimates. That can increase the amount of insurance that we pay for reinsurance. Payroll growth is up by 20%. Yes.
Did you with the screen a minute? She realized she wasn't sharing it, so
Okay.
keep talking, but it's gonna
Okay, no worries.
take a second.
So payroll is up, from the most recent audit that we have on file. That's 2023 versus 2024. We're always a little bit behind because we're just about to complete the 2025 payroll audit. That probably won't be for the next month or so. And that exercise hasn't gone through ahead of underwriting. So we're always a little bit behind on the audit side of things. Your losses look excellent. The city is doing very well. Everybody,
Wow.
but you guys are doing very, very well in that respect. We have models every year, an actuarial model, and it determines how much you should be charged for insurance. And unlike health insurance and your own personal home and auto, the insurance at the trust can go backwards, which you're seeing here. You're getting a reduction in premium on your liability side.
Can I interrupt you? I don't know if I saw your face, when he was talking about workers' comp audits. So we pay a premium on an estimate of what we think it's gonna be, and then I go through an audit period, and then we actually, sometimes we get money back, or sometimes we pay again based on actuals, if that was what you were curious about.
And that's how premium is built, is based on payroll. So payroll kind of helps us understand what the exposure at play is. And so if payroll goes up, premium goes up. Payroll goes down, premium goes down. And we're using an estimate right out of the gate, beginning of the year. But because it's just an estimate, we have to do an audit at the end. And that is not unique to the trust. That is just a standard practice within the world of workers' compensation. So. And we use that payroll audit for liability purposes as well to determine growth. And even with your growth, which is significant, on payroll, your premium is still going down by $1,400. So way to go, keep having no losses. That's very impressive. Your autos, you only have 10 autos in your fleet. There's not more change from one year to the next. Your loss ratios are excellent there. There's a little bit of some losses if we go further out, but we're more concerned with what's happening recently. And your premium is going down there as well, significantly. So to the tune of $1,900, even with the same amount of autos that we were insuring the year before. Again, our actuarial models get updated every year. If there's space for us to return premium to our members, that's what we're gonna do. So you're in good shape there as well. Property, we have had to develop our rate on property a little bit. Property claims from across the country and the world are up. There's been fires, there's been natural disasters. A lot of people are saying that the earth is getting hotter and it's causing some of these things. I'm sure we've seen it in Utah. We know that We just came out of the lowest snow year that we've ever had, and when there's dry weather, we're gonna have a bigger fire season. And we're seeing that now. So our reinsurance that we pay for property has gone up, and we've had to develop our rate a little bit. So your premium has gone up as well, and I don't want you to feel like it's been because of your performance, because your losses have been excellent. But the premium is up 13%, for the town. Part of that is also due to about 3% of that is due to just keeping up with inflation. So, any questions there? Yeah, well, this is how everything shook out overall from one year to the next. So the town is doing really good. We applaud you in your efforts to keep people safe. We applaud you in your efforts to avoid lawsuits. We applaud you in your efforts to keep the infrastructure of the town safe as well. We know it's not easy for a mountain community to keep low insurance rates. The trust that does take a different approach. We've seen it all over the country where mountain communities have a hard time getting fire insurance just by nature of being in the mountains. But we are a little bit different of an animal, and that's thanks to communities like you guys that take this stuff seriously, that helps us keep these rates down. We appreciate your membership with the trust. If there's anything that you guys ever need from the trust, we will be here, John, on the spot, and we stand ready to assist however we can. So that's everything I've got, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, you know, that you do have we had an auto accident about 5 years ago or so. That was due to a person driving an alcohol vehicle who swerved off the road to avoid hitting a moose.
There's more
Yeah,
mooses here than there are already. So, well, thanks again. Any questions for us? Is there anything that you guys need from the trust? Oh,
That's great. Person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really helps.
absolutely. Thanks for having me in person. It's good to see you all.
Yes. All right, let's we got the presentation by the business license designers.
Yeah, so I wanted to introduce like the business license study and Aaron Sanborn from Zions Public Finance. Just so you know, due to the timing, our budget and business license renewal period, we've been working a quick turnaround. So we would like your feedback at the end of the presentation, and then we'll prepare to come next meeting with options for the council to consider. Just a little bit more background. With the business license study, it is there to assess businesses and liquor license fees, as well as review related ordinances and resolutions. And under the Utah Code 10-1-203, business license fees cannot be used to generate extra revenue. They must strictly cover the town's actual cost to process, regulate, and protect those businesses. This study identifies the maximum legal cap the town is permitted to charge under Utah law. The benchmark, and does not mean these maximum amounts will be the final fees assessed. Again, that's going to come under your consideration. The town council retains full authority and then sets that fee. They can set it below the caps, or they can set it, it's up to the council's discretion. We did go through a request, for proposal process in July to determine the best fit company to help. And we chose Zions Public Finance because it was the best fit for our town, pricing and otherwise. The fees in this study were calculated by using a base administrative fee, enhanced service fees, and disproportionate police call fees. A more detailed explanation will be given in the following presentation by Aaron, and he's, as I mentioned, the Zions, and he was our main point of contact. And after his presentation, I'm going to ask Marshall Morey to come up and give a little bit more insight into the information that was provided to Aaron. So Aaron.
Yeah, glad to be with you all virtually this afternoon. Fortunately, I wasn't able to make the drive up there due to some other conflicts with schedule. But really, we're excited to go through this process with you. As was mentioned, we did look at the business license fee study and what the maximum fees could be. And really, again, just to hit it home, the basics of this is that your business license fee is ultimately made up of a number of different components. Looking at just the basic administrative costs that it takes for town staff to process the application and go through those things to actually issue a business license. There is the allowance in state code if certain either business types or business areas receive enhanced services. There's a mechanism to be able to as well recoup some of the costs of that, as well as this disproportionate fee. One side of it is a regulatory side, or if there are services that businesses are disproportionately affecting the town services, there is a mechanism as well to be able to recoup those costs. And the important things to note here, as Brooke already mentioned, is that the study is only saying what the maximum fee could be charged. In essence, we are saying, based on the information and the data we've gathered, this is the cost that it takes the town of Alta to provide these services to businesses in the community. It's not saying that that fee has to be what the town council ultimately adopts. That's just saying up to that amount, you can do that. And then beyond that, it's up to the discretion of the council to be able to determine where that fee should be. So starting off first with our base administrative costs, and there's a couple of components that go into this. One is the main one is the direct labor cost that it takes for town staff to go in and to receive the application, to review everything, and from start to finish issue a business license. This is looking at the wages and the benefits. In this case, your town clerk and also deputy town clerk. There's also a recognition that there are indirect costs, both in the overhead. This is general town services that don't have to be specifically paid for by business licensing, but that every employee in the town benefits from. Examples include IT, HR, finance, legal, things that are generally used for every town employee. There's also training costs that we can include if there are meetings or trainings that business licensing staff are going through outside of their regular review process for business licensing, to include that. These three elements get broken down essentially into a cost per minute that then gets applied to the number of minutes that takes to process the average license. And you can see that here. So we have all the different license categories. All the regular business licenses for this are just clumped down into that general business license, because the time that it takes to process those is identical no matter what kind of category your business may be. You can see again, liquor licenses are all at 20 minutes as well. For deputy town clerk, you can see the cost per minute for each employee and for what their time takes. And this again is the direct costs and both of those indirect costs. And so that first element, this last column, is the first part of the base administrative fee. But there's also, as I talked with town staff, identified that there are supplies that are utilized for business licensing. That's computer software as well as materials that are used to help prepare business licensing that can be included in this. As well, the very cost of this study is allowed to be included in that. We take the total cost and estimate that usually every 5 years, a city or a community will go through this process again. And so broke that out to an annual cost just for 5 years for the study. And both of those get charged per license application. So the first element is that total cost for the base administrative fee. Now this is whatever business you are, you come in and say, hey, I want to engage in business here. This is what it takes to get just that basic business license to be able to operate in the town. But this is not covering those additional services that might be incurred because of the specific type of business. And so that's where the state code allows us to look deeper at certain business types in order to make sure that you're well aware of what impact those businesses are having on the community. The first one is that enhanced services, and this is saying, hey, there's either a specific area or business type that we are providing additional services because we value that. This may be, hey, in a downtown, we are providing some beautification efforts, or maybe we are patrolling parking, and things like that. Or if there is a certain requirement that town staff have to meet in order for a business license to be issued. And there's two that the town council could consider to include in the business license fee. The first one is for parking. There are multiple parking areas in the town that are patrolled specifically by the marshal's office for kind of enhanced security in those areas. And in discussions with town staff has identified that there's 2 hours a day that they are doing this in specific areas in the town. And so you can see that we break out, there's 720 hours a year that is spent patrolling these lots. And then looking at the costs, this is the wage and benefits on average for town marshal staff, as well as certain overhead costs specifically in the police department itself, coming out to an annual cost of about $51,000 that is being spent by the marshal's office in patrolling this. The town staff was fantastic to go and to calculate the share of the parking area that's being patrolled. And you can see the 71.8% obviously do not add up to 100%. There's 21% of the parking area that's not being considered with this enhanced services fee. That would be covered by just general tax revenue. Other areas that aren't specifically called out for the service. You can see then, the Alpha Ski area, their share is at $35,000, and the hotels would share about $4,000 of that. And the way that this has been identified in the past, I don't think this has been enacted, but in a prior study that we did in 2021, went through this same process. And essentially, this is a one-time fee, meaning that if a business has multiple business entities in the same category, each business would not be charged this fee. It would just be for one operation annually. And that breaks out again for the hotels about $1,000 per business, and then businesses under the ski lift category that just shy of $36,000. Again, reiterating that this is the maximum that could be charged for that. One of the enhanced services that, as we discussed with staff, that they wanted to hone in on was the Peruvian Estates area, where town code currently requires that if an owner there wants to receive a business license, there's specific requirements that they have to meet in order to do that. And, getting a letter certifying that they can be connected to the Interlodge system and notifications and different things like that. That takes time for the town marshal's office to go and to make sure that everything is done and that these can be issued a business license. There was identified 20 minutes of staff time to that. And similar to how we look at the base administrative cost, we just look at, hey, what's the cost per minute to provide this service? And then multiply that by the minutes spent, and that this could be charged to every business license who wants to receive one in the Peruvian Estates area. Finally, the last category is the disproportionate fee. And this one, we're looking at a couple of different categories. Mainly the one we're looking at is if there's a level of service above and beyond what is provided to a single family home. And that one is dictated by the state, that we look at what level of service is provided to a single family home and then base that off of that. And it follows a multi-step process where first we're identifying what level of service is currently given to a single family residential unit. Then we look at the budget for whatever service we're looking at, in this case, the marshal's office. What does it cost the marshal's office per call to respond and to provide that service? Next, we look at all the businesses in the city and we look, we take the groupings that they're in, make any adjustments if needed, but then also take those calls for service to the marshal's office and say, which businesses are getting the calls? Where are people calling in for whatever reason that might be? We don't look at solely traffic calls, but calls that are able to be tagged to a specific business. And then look at how they are above what the base service level is, or maybe they're the same or below, and kind of calculate what their level of service is for those. And then finally take whatever call ratio they have and then multiply that by the cost per call to come up with a disproportionate fee per business. So that first step, there's not a tremendous amount of calls that occur to just purely single family residential. I mean, our analysis, we found, we looked at a 2-year call period just to be able to help smooth out any major bumps. If there were certain businesses that 1 year had a high amount, but then lower, we want to be able to average that. So we looked at 2 years of data, and the average for the residential residential units was 14 to single family residential units, with 89 single family homes identified within the town. So on average, a single family home was making 0.15 calls to the marshal's office every year. So that's our base service level, saying this is what we currently provide to our single family residences. The cost per call, we take the budget for the marshal's office, and we recognize that not all of their time is spent actively responding to calls. And so working with town staff, again, they were able to identify that 11.62% of the time of the marshal's office was actually on responding to calls. And so it would only take that percentage of the total budget to say, this is what you are spending on doing that. And with the 857 calls that occurred in the last fiscal year, the cost per call was $232.84. And the last kind of initial step with this is to identify the number of calls per business. And we, again, use the business license groupings that were provided by the town, and there were some changes made. You can see category 2 here is non-existent. That's not a mistake. This was previously a category that was hotels of the 10 to 20 room size. There are currently none that fit within that category. And so it doesn't make sense to use that right now, but it's kept there in case in the future the town needs to essentially reactivate that category. As well, services and retail, both of these categories were a little bit different in that some of the services were captured in the retail category, but not all. And it was a recommendation to say, let's split up so that any business who is retail in nature is in the same category, and any business that is providing a service in nature, or that's their primary mode of business, is going to be classified in that services. Each category you can see has a number of average calls per business. And this is just taking the data from the marshal's office, identifying where that call happened and attaching it to a business, averaging it again over a 2-year period to identify the number of calls per business. We then subtract out this column here, the base service level, to say, because we are providing that service level to the single family residential unit, that is what everyone is going to automatically receive. And so we're just looking at how above that ratio they are. And that's what this last column is just taking the average calls per business, subtracting out the base service level to come up with that disproportionate level of service. And this is how much more these business types are impacting town services compared to that single family unit. Most of them are at 0. And you can see, again, for category 4 and 5, they both did have calls, but because they are below the base service level, we essentially say they do not have a disproportionate impact based on current data to be able to justify charging a fee. So right now, only hotels, daycare businesses, and then the ski lift company, based on the call data, show to have a disproportionate impact. That gets, again, multiplied out by the cost per call to come up with this disproportionate fee that could be charged based on their impact to the system. Again, you saw this before, but again, it's adding in all 3 of these fees to come up with your total business license fee. Again, the maximum you could charge. And that's what this looks like here. We have the first column as the base fee. This is what again, that administrative cost that it takes. This parking enhanced service fee is again charged only to the hotels and the ski lift company based on the service that's being provided to patrol the parking. The enhanced service fee is charged to short-term rentals that are in the Peruvian Estates area only if they're requesting a business license, and that's not charged to any other short-term rentals. So it's take the category 3, the understanding, even though the fee looks higher, it's only because of the potential for the Peruvian Estates. And finally, adding in the disproportionate fee, what could be charged for the total fee for all the different business categories, as well as the different liquor license categories. The fees are different than what you are currently charging. You can see here that there are some significant changes. I'll point out just a few here. Obviously, with the liquor licenses, there's a dramatic difference. We're showing the annual fee for each of the different categories. Right now, there's an option to do a full year or a 6-month option. But obviously there's a fairly significant decrease in the fee, and in discussions with town staff, that largely is due to the fact that the process is much more streamlined for these businesses now than it once was. Now, I don't know when the last time there was an analysis done on the liquor license process, but in our 2021 study, we did not look at these. We didn't look at the process for that. So it's been obviously quite a while since these have been reviewed, and in that time, the process has been made a lot easier for town staff to be able to look at everything that they need to with the state. They'll issue those licenses. And you can see as well, other categories, some are going up, some are going down as well, just based on the time that is needed for each of these businesses, but also based on the current call data, what the actual impact these businesses are having on the system. This represents, again, what you could potentially charge up to. We're not making the recommendation that this is where you should. Certainly there's discussion to be had about what makes the most sense, but this is showing, hey, if you want to recoup 100% of the cost of business licensing, this is what you would need to charge for that. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have with this and kind of continue the discussion as needed.
I would love to, thank you, Aaron. I would love to point out one thing about our current fees. And this mostly applies to the ski area, actually. So our current fees would have, for the ski area specifically, we have first license, and then we have additional licenses. And so the way we've been licensing the ski area has been per building, essentially. And that's just been kind of problematic, I think, for staff and for the ski area and stuff over time. And so we kind of said, hey, Aaron, we would, it's all one entity. They're operating as a ski area. As long as all of the businesses they're doing within all of those facilities are complementary, it'd be so much easier if we issued them a license. Well, so the 3250 is not what they're currently paying. There is some additional costs with that, and we can talk about that in the future, but I just think that's something worth pointing out.
Well, and just also the liquor licenses, so it would be the business plus the liquor licenses, so just to clarify.
For use. And so one of the things that we, a big piece of this is the marshal's office services to the community. And so, this business license study is one tool that we want to use when we're setting fees. So just to give you some indication of where we're going with this, we'll actually have a report by the next council meeting. And I think we're looking for some feedback from you today on what sort of, do you want to see a series of options for a fee schedule update in what we charge? We would need to do that at the next council meeting in order to be able to implement those new fees by the time our business license cycle starts this fall. And that's why this is just a little tight. And we felt like it was worthwhile to at least present this stuff to you today to get the wheels churning, so that hopefully next month we might be able to actually make some decisions.
Was our last one in 2021?
2021, exactly.
Because I remember we had a very lengthy
Yes, we
Discussion.
did, and that's where we came up with the options of, okay, if we charged, 50% of the recommended on a series, where where the maximum is, significantly above the kind of the current rate, how do we wanna potentially ease into something like that? When you're setting these fees, Aaron said at the beginning, but, you wanna think about where you're currently at, where you're going. Other things like parking, which maybe we could have Mike come up now and talk a little bit about the parking program and, he was so eloquent, what do you see? I'm not watching if I even try.
So I'm really excited to understand the cost per call number and looking forward to the day where we have credit card scanners in the police car. Not so much for the economic well-being of the town, but do you want to tip your server? Of course. So, let me start my comments just by saying that Brooke and Jen have worked particularly hard on this to get you at the levels today, as well as the work done by Lions. We've done our best to help out with the data points from a system that was not designed to do business license studies. It was designed to tell me what our cops are doing with our time. And, measure our, what work is still outstanding and needs attention. So there's a subjective factor to that. And part of the data that I think you guys are gonna be looking at and considering is anecdotal. Specifically, I've been asked questions like, hey, how much time do you spend in the ski area parking lots? It's easily 2 hours a day. Without some substance explaining why we do that. I think it'd be tough for you as a group to make informed decisions about fees and licensing costs. Why do we do that? Well, we know that, a good portion of the year, that's where the people are twice a day. So we hang out proactively to do that, not because we've been dispatched to do it, but because, that's what cops do. They gravitate towards where the most people happen to be. This time of year, the same argument might be said for the campground. So things can be a little subjective, but we've done our part to give you fair, honest answers, that can be construed as data. Somebody dumbed this down for me recently, and I'm glad that, the separation was shown in the presentation, a business license is a regulation tool. That is what the town does, is a regulation mechanism. A service is another thing. So I'm glad to see that, enhanced services being separated away from licensing. Because really, I think when an entity considers a business license fee, a natural question to ask is, okay, what are our expenses in regulating the business? Not necessarily what services, delivered. That's a separate conversation, and it's probably gonna be brought into these fee conversations. There's a lot of nuances to this town, and I think Jim's, alluded to that. I think the parking example is a great place to start a conversation. Yes, in fact, we do provide an enhanced police presence in the Alta Ski area parking lots. But I think it's prudent to consider, before assessing a fee, we have a separate contract that addresses that. And in exchange for the value of those services, the town of Alta receives a bunch of parking on Alta Ski Lift's permit area that we're allowed to use for residential use. So, there's a lot of, there's a lot of those kind of situations that exist within the town. I would welcome the opportunity to help the council and staff sort through those things and give you our anecdotal experiences if you think it's necessary as you try to tackle this.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I just wanna thank Mike for his input and Sarah McCloskey for helping
Yeah,
me
absolutely.
gather the data.
Really the brains of why the data exists. This is Sarah in her show. Questions I can answer?
So I just was gonna say that I remember doing this in 21. I know you were on the council then, no, 2021, no. So.
Margaret.
What's the other part?
It was Jennifer, yeah,
Yeah.
so I do remember this being a very extensive conversation, and it is very easy, a little bit like what Maury was alluding to sometimes get brought into what the max fee is, especially when you bring in the enhanced services, but when we had our discussion a long time ago, you gotta remember, like, balancing a business license fee is, what is the business bringing to the town? What is, it's not about just charging them a fee because you see on a study, it's about trying to find the balance. So some of the fees that you see in the current fee is when the council back in 2021 kind of weighed all this together and we came up with that. I was thinking that it would be helpful for me in a report, and I don't know if it's possible, that 2021 study, I'd like to read it again.
Oh, yeah.
And see what the change is, because I can see the percent change on here, but that's basically the numbers that the council kind of came up with, but the 2021 max.
Oh, yeah.
Fee versus the 2026 max fee, I'm just curious if there's been like a dramatic change.
Yeah, I mean, I can either
or-
send out the whole report or we can put that in a table.
That's kind of what I was
As soon
thinking,
as
just a
there's
little bit of a table, because I
Yeah.
want to give the rest of the council a little background on how, these previous licenses were set. Based off of the information we had before, and because we're looking for a quick turnaround, I remember us having so many meetings about this business license. Fee. So I'm hoping I'm hoping we can get you that quick turnaround.
I guess
Well,
Yeah. Same thing on the like requesting thing, will every business license be on this form, so the hotels will be listed, bank, the short-term rentals will be listed, so that you can have an idea.
Like
of,
individually,
Yeah, of like what business you're thinking
we
about.
could
or
give you a
studying.
number, I don't think we would list.
I don't think I would say, I don't think I'd wanna
We'll
list.
give you
I
a
know-
number of licenses in each category.
Yeah, I don't know if I wanna list of the businesses in each category, because I
Okay.
don't wanna fall into like any sort
Yeah.
of biases or anything. I think this
Okay.
needs to be like a very, broad, you got retail services, hotel services, and as Brooke mentioned, some of those people are buying liquor license in addition to their business license. But I'm just trying to think of a way to get you what I don't know, I'm assuming we might have to have a work session on this, because this
That would be great.
is very
That'd be great.
complicated
Yeah.
in 2021.
Well, right, and I remember all the tables that came up, I was like, okay, if we did 30%, or if we did 50% or 60%, and then you had a whole bunch of conversations, and then you gave me guidance on like which percent and where we wanted to be, so I was kind of thinking it's probably gonna be a similar-ish.
Yes, I think so,
Type of
and I think Maury like
presents you.
explained it really well, like, the business license is kind of this regulatory, we wanna cover our costs of the town of issuing the business license. Some of the enhanced service. The call outs, that is potentially what we could charge, but like Maury said, it's more of a service that as a town, I feel that, we do have a responsibility to provide. So it's not like I wanna charge a business for some service that we should be providing anyways as a town. So, I don't know, I do remember this being really complicated conversation, I was like.
We did a different mayor.
Yes, get a different mayor. But we did a lot of circling around, so these numbers that you see that say current fees are ones that the council came up with then.
Yep.
At the time, and I don't know, you mentioned the ski area. I have been part of the ski area. It is very complicated to take every individual building and decide whether it's a retail space or a ski lift company or a restaurant. And I do feel that this ski lift company should just be treated as a one business like they are and charged one business license instead of, I believe it was like.
It's different now.
It's
than
different
when
now,
you used to
correct.
work with me.
But it used to be a lot
It's
more.
5 or 6,
Yes.
it's basically by building,
Yes.
so,
Well,
in addition to the liquor licenses.
what I got from this is. We can't make any money off business licenses, we the town,
Correct.
but we don't have to lose any either,
Right, and you're trying to find that sweet spot.
right? And that's But the computation to get exactly what that is pretty damn complex.
And obviously these negative ones, I mean, we need to adjust.
Yeah, I think
Those-
that's gonna be great news.
We have. to
That's gonna
adjust
be
those.
great, that's gonna be great news for, I think,
Correct.
many of our businesses.
Okay, are we?
Do we have any questions about like the data for Aaron specifically, or what he produced,
Absolutely.
please?
I do not want to raffle. So I think it'd be a lot more productive if I just schedule a call with you, Aaron. It won't take too long and it'll be less than half an hour.
Absolutely, yeah, happy to do that.
All right. Are we finished with this song? Then let's move on to Alpha Sierra, which we're gonna skip because he's already here to give it. And capital committee update. Are you gonna say something about that?
Yeah. Forgot about, the capital committee update, and I know that you prepared, that was not because I ran out of time, I just, didn't prepare anything. We did have our first meeting. It was a nice meeting. It was, mostly, an update on, just a refresher on, where we are in our capital improvement planning process. We hadn't, seen committee members or really assembled the whole committee since before the ski season ended. We do have a meeting scheduled September the 2nd, I think it is. We tentatively identified a date in late October. We don't have great attendance for that, like we sort of have a quorum. I don't remember what it is anyway, it's the last week of October. And that only just highlights the need to create a regular meeting schedule for that. We did talk about trying to hold shorter meetings that are more frequent, and I think that's a good objective. And we expect the next meeting is going to focus on explaining where town of Alta revenues come from and try to respond a little bit to questions about, who consumes what services, and it's kind of a similar conversation to the business license study. It's really nice to have just undergone a business license study. I think we can take some of that data and some of those reflections that Brooke and Jen have been sitting on into a presentation to the capital committee. So that's the plan for the next meeting. Generally the goal is to try to keep the committee focused on the funding. I described in the staff report, we're making progress towards issuing a request for qualifications to do feasibility study on a new building on this site. We're working with UDOT to, explore if and how we can work together to evaluate the feasibility and desirability of co-locating UDOT functions here on the site like they've had equipment here for generations really, and building may have originally been a highway department building in the first place. So yeah, that's where we are with the capital committee.
Go on. You want to say anything?
I thought the first meeting was very productive. We got really well done. The interchange was fast and efficient.
Okay, I'd like to go on to discussion possible action on ordinance 2026-0-13, and this was something that was identified last round, that is that to go from one fire condition one, I'm not really sure what the right term is.
H,
What?
the fire state.
Yeah, fire state is to another. It was gonna take a meeting of the council, which is very cumbersome considering, trying to get that done in a timely fashion. So this is to streamline that. You want to say something about that, Bob?
Yeah, I just on here, I put this together with prodding from you. I really had to look at the state code to do it. What this does is, first of all, it updates kind of your de facto fire restrictions so that you're more in line with stage 1. You were almost there, but some of the little stuff so that now that's closer. And then it delegates to the town manager, two things. One is if you need to go to heightened levels like stage 2, like we're facing this summer. Which I can appreciate because I can see I can see a fire from my house, so the rock.
Got your attention.
Yeah, and then secondly, it also will allow the town manager to issue an order for the fireworks. So that you don't have to do that every year.
Good.
Good job, Polly.
Yeah.
So just to kind of streamline it, and then the other thing I wanna mention is that it retains council authority, so if. Well, first of all, the town manager can't change the status unless either the surrounding conditions are elevated, so you know, if Salt Lake County goes to stage 2, then that's a trigger. Or consultation with the fire marshal. So you can't just say, today I feel like, you know, it's smoky, so I'm gonna elevate this. There are these certain triggers, but ultimately, ultimate authority still is retained by the council. If you don't think it should, or if you think it should happen sooner, you always have that.
Okay. We can basically override his judgment if we.
If you choose to.
Yeah.
You have ultimate authority.
All right.
Well, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2026-013 regarding fire restrictions and delegating authority to the town manager.
And I just ask as to form or with, as to form, there, I found a few typos at the last minute, we didn't wanna bore you with them, but Jen made them for the final version, so fix them for the final version.
Right.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? No.
I have a like discussion.
I like
Is that not like appropriate? So I was just reviewing a text message that I got from one of the cabin owners. So, hey, we're here at the cabin and see a couple of campfires. I thought the town was in a no fire state. Explicative. And I explained that that was on National Forest Service land. So the cabin owner texts back, you gotta be kidding me. I can't have a fire, but the campers can. Really, there's a giant disconnect. Now, I don't think this particular cabin owner wants to light fire, but I think this particular cabin owner has a very reasonable point and concern. And since I understand that you guys are putting a lot of effort into fire mitigation, and I hear Elisa's comment all the time that we do not have any egress out of here. Is there any way, I don't know, fire speaks or police speaks of somehow sort of saying that we can't have fires on the National Forest Service? And maybe that's not the time for this discussion. Sorry, Jen.
No, I was trying to help Brooke and I,
You put me on, sorry, that's okay, I don't care.
So it's jurisdictional. And so we don't have control over the Forest Service land. We try to be similar to them. They seem to be lagging behind often, and I can let our fire person speak to that, but. Part of in the camp, I know it's hard.
And you're putting the cabin owner's home at risk.
Yeah, I think that the forest feels that that they have the fire, that they have the camp person there that's watching it, this and that, but I agree, it's scary.
Yeah,
And I don't know.
so I totally agree with it.
So. The campground is. Yep, something I have made, battalion chief with unified fire, I'm here for Shake Force, so he's on vacation. So the campground's owned by the fire service, their restrictions are different than state and private land restrictions, just like what she mentioned. So Forest Service, like we mentioned, they think it's in a campground, it's safe in that fire ring. There's a water source nearby, it's attended, so that's where they're having that, you know, that reasoning of why it's okay to have a fire in their land. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, from the cabin owner's perspective, he's got water too.
Yeah, and I just had the same discussion in Brighton 2 hours ago. There's 2 campgrounds there, 2 of these campgrounds, there's some private land that run through those campgrounds. And they're not allowed to have fires that run through that because it's private land, but over here is a campground.
And they can.
Federal land versus private land.
And then we're stuck in the middle of
Age old.
saying you can, but you can't.
Well, the forest manages, you know, fuel conditions and implements fire restrictions on a sort of unit by management unit basis. And so like the Stansburys are in stage one down, you know, in Fish Lake, or I would assume they're higher than stage one, what's left in Fish Lake. And up here in the Wasatch, I mean, I asked the district ranger before the meeting, there are no restrictions in place, so I'm not sure. I mean, campfires are pretty heavily regulated in the watershed canyon. I don't think it's necessarily just because of the campground. I think in a true backcountry setting where you're outside of watershed regulations, you know, distance from creeks, et cetera, et cetera. You can have a fire. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting disconnect for sure.
Okay, and we're not gonna solve it.
Nope. No, I just thought I'd bring it up, just to say thank you for letting me bring it up.
Yeah, but what we can do is enact this ordinance, which has been moved in second,
Yes.
and I think we're ready to.
Yeah, so motion by Councilmember Morgan and seconded by Councilmember Ansel. Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Passes. All right. I think somebody wants to take a quick stand-up break. I think I will do too. So let's have it just stand up for a moment here.
You lead us through a routine?
What's that?
Lead us through a routine?
Yeah.
I'll send her the 8 shape.
What's that?
Would you remember the 8 shape?
Oh, what's that?
Not gonna be around, you can rush it.
Okay.
What are these?
Basically, you shake everything, you should give right hand, you're watching it. Right, you're like 8 times and then 7 and 6.
Oh, all the way through.
But I was thinking that would be really close. I like that. Good question. We'll try.
Okay.
What is it called, Molly? The 8 shake?
Can you send me?
I will do it when I go back to.
Email.
I'll do it tonight.
It's so.
Questions.
Yeah.
I remember it's from 12 years ago. Didn't know. So
It does raise the issue of race with full adults in the time frame. I remember I talked about that, I mean, what they did was full updated study.
Yeah.
Based on,
And then they guesstimated at the time, tracking the salary.
yeah, I mean, because that's in the call.
I will.
They have time on calls.
For those particular.
Thank you. Just like them.
All right, so. Back to work. Here you go. The next item on the agenda is. Mayor's report, what do you know? All right, and I'm gonna start this with some sad news. We lost one of our longtime townspeople last month, Bill Binger. He's a dentist by training, a humorist, an outdoor controller by nature. And all around fun guy to be around. And he's succumbed to Parkinson's disease. At one time, Bill was our postal collector, I think before you with me, what, with you?
Yes.
Okay. And he always had a cheery word when he dropped in. And he authored this book, which was called Highway 210 to Alpha. And it's, I don't know how to describe it, a bunch of witty sayings, or just, I don't know.
I like stories, poems.
Yeah.
All sorts of.
Yeah, it's it. So help yourself if you've not seen Bill Binger's work. Another loss was Nicholas Besabrosov, a Powder Ridge resident who died in a traffic accident in Wyoming. So, as you know, last year I tried to get a meeting with our United States Senator or one of our United States senators, John Curtis. And we had this rather unusual date. We were going to meet with Catherine's Pass. A quick time and a quick day. And what happened is that the Senate leader, John Thune, kept everybody after school. And he couldn't come. But and then there was snow. But his staffer actually kept our name on the list, and so something might develop, we'll see. Next time, for the first time since I've lived here, I can't see any snow from my home. In every year that I've been here, there's always some sort of remnant on Devil's Castle or Superior or something like that, so. And then it was there until the first snowfall fell. So there was never a time when there was no snow visible. So it brings to mind a Bob Dylan song of my rebellious youth, which is the times they're changing. Rocky Mountain Power is on track to bury many of the power lines in Alpha to reduce the risk of igniting the fire. That's a good thing. However, in excavating along the highway, and this is mentioned in Chris's report, on the morning of June 27th, they broke into the natural gas line. And that resulted in, fortunately, no catastrophe, which might have, but shut off of gas to everybody in town. And lasted about 4 hours. And as usual, our emergency service crew were right on top of the job. And the cops were out there and keeping people safe. Then on August 4th, the excavating continuing up the road and interrupted the fiber optic lines to Rustler and Snowpine. So that's not such a good thing. And I noticed they were trenching as I came down today about where the booth is to add to the congestion. So while these events were rectified, they were hard on residents and businesses in the town. Now, related to these constant smoky days, which are just really addressing here, are due to wildfires, as everybody knows, in central Utah and elsewhere. In California, where the Eaton fire led to the bankruptcy of Southern California Edison, utilities are adopting fast trip settings that cut off power within milliseconds of detecting a break, which is pretty fast. And I mean, that certainly reduces or is intent to reduce the chances of ignition. It also increases the frequency of outages. So there's no such thing as a free lunch here. And that will increase the use of expensive and little used backup generators. All this is made more acute by greenhouse gases and the times they are changing. On August 5th, a week ago, Craig and I attended a meeting called by our state senator, Kirk Elmore. The agenda for this meeting was 3 words: Little Cottonwood Canyon. So we didn't know, or I certainly didn't know what we were getting into. There were about 50 people there. Many of them, not all, had political connections. The gondola issue was more or less skirted, I would say. And but there was kind of a bottom line consensus, which was get on with the busing and make it work. And Jeff Silvestrini, who is the former mayor of Mill Creek, yeah, has volunteered to organize a group and is tackling this issue on a continuing basis with probably a couple of gatherings per month. I can't forecast where this is going to end up, but it has clearly gotten the attention of prominent figures in the legislation. After the close, I invited Senator Colmar to visit us, see what happens there. You want to add anything to that?
This meeting has been, that meeting was basically a year and a half in making, so that's how long it took to take up. And I had extraordinarily low expectations of the meeting, had 50 people in it and had no agenda. But I was surprised that, there was some positive direction, so in fact, I was texting just a second ago to the follow-up to that meeting. So the hard questions are not yet on the table, but I actually believe that Jeff is a very competent, his official title is facilitator or mediator. And I think some real mediation is in order.
Good. So, coming up next week, Mike Bonner and I are expecting a visit with representatives of UTA to discuss winter bus service to Alta. I want to forward those results next month. I hope to get bus service to both base areas and frequent enough that people will use it and find it valuable.
In the parking. What do you say,
Well, I mean,
We need gold miners again.
Gold miners in Albion. Yeah, that's what I mean by both.
Not a random drop off at the top of.
Yeah. Okay, that takes us to the astronomy report. So, as I promised, I'll talk about the Artemis II flight path. And last month I mentioned Kepler's law, which was that the planets move in around the central body in an ellipse. And an ellipse can be envisioned by cutting a cone diagonally like this, and that sliced figure is an ellipse. But that's not the only way you can cut a cone. You can slice the cone vertically parallel to the axis, which is the next figure. Okay, and that is not an ellipse. That's a hyperbola. And I submit that all of us have seen hyperbolas, but we probably didn't have a name for them. And the next picture is where we saw them.
Try.
Okay, so that light fixture is putting out a cone of light. Actually, two cones of light, one up and one down. And that cone of light is being intercepted by a plane, which we call a wall. And the shape of those lights are hyperbolae. So the next time you see one of those sconces on the wall, you say, my gosh, that's a hyperbola.
That's Roger.
All right. And why is that interesting? Because there's another shape for orbits, not just an ellipse, as we showed around here, but a hyperbola. So this is the orbit of this spacecraft Artemis II going to the moon, and it gets launched over there where it says launch, goes into a circle, which is a kind of degenerate ellipse, so it gets kind of opposite the moon, and then there's a burn for those 20 degrees, and then the translunar injection is cut off. At that point, it has enough energy to go into a big ellipse, which goes clear out there. And when it gets close, meanwhile, it takes about 3 days to get there. Meanwhile, the moon is moving up in this figure. And when it gets close to the moon, it gets within the sphere of influence of the moon, and so the moon captures it into a hyperbolic orbit, where it then escapes and heads back to the Earth. That's actually what happened on Apollo 13. If you've ever seen that movie, they had a free return around the moon, and so there's actually two conic sections here, the ellipse and the hyperbola. So Apollo 13 had a serious failure on the first leg and simply went around the moon and came back to the Earth, and it was a dicey situation. So you also encounter this hyperbola when some celestial body comes near to the Earth. It too follows the hyperbolic orbit when it's in our vicinity, and then escapes and goes back to orbiting the sun in an ellipse. Unless it comes too close to us, it hits us. which occasionally happens, but not very often. And the next town council meeting will be on September 9th, starting at 4 p.m. I think we're ready now to go through consent agenda. So, do we have to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right, now, there may be, let's see, questions regarding the department reports. In fact, I've asked, Mike has kind of an unusual entry in his department report this month. You wanna
You've had unusual entries the last.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good at unusual entries. So would you like to speak?
Well, up to this point, this has been one of the most entertaining council meetings I'm gonna ruin that right now. As you probably saw in your council packet, the marshal's office is in a sexual assault investigation. I know by saying that, it's likely that we are triggering some emotions, potentially some fears. And certainly a desire to know more. So, I will, tell you a couple of brief things, that, in the early part of August, we received this report. This crime is specific.
What's that mean, specific?
Let me finish, please.
Okay, all right.
It does not involve members of the Alta community, and there is no continuing danger to the Alta community. Having said that, I'm not gonna release any details on our investigation. Which is a tough thing for me to do, because I like you, I want you to know what we're doing. I want the community to know what we're doing and to trust us. What might be viewed as concealing information, we are doing to protect. And what are we protecting? We are protecting a victim of a crime. We are protecting the integrity of the investigation. We are protecting any other agencies who may or may not be assisting us in the investigation. And I want you to know we've brought every resource that's appropriate to this investigation to bear. When we can say more about our investigation, we will say more about our investigation, but it's paramount. We protect the victim in this case and their story. And for that reason, we're not gonna release any details. Another thing we want to protect is everybody in this room and everybody watching a live stream on YouTube from receiving a subpoena, because I have testified the evidence on a case that we have not filed with the court. And made you all witnesses, and we won't do that. So, when we get to the appropriate time where, you know, we can talk about what's occurred, to the extent that we can, we will. Again, there is no continuing threat to anybody in the death of Alta. If we for a second believed that that was the case, you would have heard from us quite some time ago. I wish I could say more, but we will when we can. Thank you.
That's what I wanted to hear from you. Thank you. That there is no threat. But most importantly, if you ever thought there was a threat to our community, that you would inform us.
Of course we would. And so I guess my ask, if I can just continue for a second,
Yes.
is for your patience and your confidence for us to do what we need to do.
100%.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions concerning department reports? All right. What's your question?
I read the draft minutes, the comments I made at the last meeting. I think when Brooke typed them out, I think she repeated, oh, sorry.
No, no.
I think there was like a repeat sentence in there, cause it was on the state assessed properties. Just look at it
Okay,
and then whatever path you think to remedy
Okay.
is, that would be great.
thank you.
All right, new business,
I have one,
yes,
we are looking for administrative law judge,
yes.
so if anybody has any. Anybody out there, please tell them to go to our request for proposals page on the town of Alta website.
And what are the qualifications for an administrative law judge?
Well, to know the code, the town code, Polly, if you wanna add here,
Yeah, you have to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you
License in Utah?
licensed in Utah, and I don't have the RFP in front of me, but I recall it's. You know, knowledge of administrative law so that you have someone who's qualified to be able to review any type of appeals. That can give a fair review.
And applications are due on the 18th of this month. I had a typo in the staff report of the 19th. So, but it is the 18th on the RFP.
And have you received any applications yet?
had a nibble.
We're hoping to get a bite here soon.
That's why I'm asking to, announce it today.
Yeah.
All right,
We'd like to have a choice in the
yes.
matter.
Any other new business? In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
This one's a little long. Sorry.
No, not try. You'll get it 11 minutes earlier than I thought we were going to, so that's all good. Well, it is 2 nights in a row.
We did a 7:30. We got work session at 7:30, like 3 months ago.
Is this?